حياتي لو كان فيش احتلال بتكون أحلى، بس برضو احنا كل يوم تقريبا نتعرض للعنف من الاحتلال.
We know well that Palestinian protesters tweeted advice to protesters in Ferguson when tear gas was sprayed. We also know that a company in Pennsylvania manufactures that tear gas that's used in the West Bank and in places like Ferguson, both.
Hello, my name is Stanley Heller. Welcome to The Struggle. The Struggle is shown on over 30 cable stations from Vermont to New York City, on the internet at thestruggle.org, YouTube channel, Struggle Video Media. Today, varieties of resistance to the right-wing apocalypse, a Palestinian young woman who you'll get to hear and maybe see in Connecticut, and portions of the Wheels of Justice Festival. Resistance to injustice takes on many forms. One method, mastered by CODEPINK, is to show up at hearings where the rich and powerful oh so gently question and compliment each other. Their CODEPINK by costumes and yelled remarks speaks truth to power. One of the CODEPINK activists dressed in a pointed sheet to remind people of Senator Sessions' infamous remark about the Klan. Much more will be needed to force change. The motto might be the incredible Latino effort on May Day of 2006. It was called a boycott, but it was really a call for a national massive strike. The smart people knew this could never happen. Only giant labor unions could do such a thing, and the top labor leaders had abandoned the streets long ago, hoping for gains by supporting politicians. Yet the strike did happen, and millions stopped work and school and marched into the streets. In New Haven on January 20th, there'll be an immigrant and Latino-led effort they call the General Strike. This is their call. On Friday, January 20th, Inauguration Day, we are calling on people from across Connecticut to join together in a general strike against the new fascist government and its agenda seeking to victimize a multitude of vulnerable and oppressed peoples. No work, no school, no business as usual. Join us in the streets. It is clear that the political system has failed to protect us, and we are left with no other choice but to band together at the grassroots with the most powerful weapon at our disposal, the right to refuse to work and make a profit for those who rule over us and only care about money. We must show that xenophobia will not be profitable, misogyny will not be profitable, queerphobia and transphobia will not be profitable. The call comes from the New Haven Workers Association, Unidad Latina en Acción, the Connecticut Immigrant Rights Alliance, and the Connecticut membership of the Industrial Workers of the World. People taking part will meet at 9 a.m. through noon on the New Haven Green. More on this at the Facebook page. Search for General Strike New Haven. A national tour is starting soon. It's called No Child Behind Bars. It's connecting the mistreatment of children from the U.S. to Palestine. One of the speakers at this moment has been denied a visa by the Obama administration. She's 16-year-old Ahed Tamimi, part of the remarkable family leading popular resistance in Nabi, Saleh, Palestine. Here's a couple of minutes of a video about her.
حياتي لو كان فيش احتلال بتكون أحلى، بس برضه احنا يعني كل يوم تقريبا نتعرض للعنف من الاحتلال، وبصير فعالية يعني كل يوم. اسمي أهد باسم محمد تميمي، بنت باسم النريمان التميمي. أنا من فلسطين، بعيش بقرية النبي صالح. هم يعني هناك بنت 14 سنة بتعيش حياتها بين أهلها، بتخسرش حدا، بس أنا كل حدا من عيلتي معرض للخطر، وفي أي وقت يعني بيجوا بيعتقلوه أو بقتلوه.
دفاعا عن كرامتنا الإنسانية. ما تخافيش تعيطيش.
دور المرأة كبير، وهي أساس المقاومة الشعبية، وبلاها يعني بنخسر أشياء كثير، يعني زي بفلسطين وبالنبي صالح، يعني المرأة بتتعرض للعنف زي الزلم بالضبط، لأنه الاحتلال فيش عنده رحمة، فيش عنده بنت ولا ولد ولا شيخ ولا مرة ولا أي حدا يعني بهمه. إصابة أمي أثرت يعني كثير، يعني كانت أولها يعني كنا نفسيتنا صعبة، وأثرت يعني على دراستي، إنه كنت أرجع لأنه هي كانت ما تقدرش تتحرك. بشوف المستقبل أحلى، لأن دائما بتخيل إني راح أطلع الاحتلال من بلدي ومن وطني. راح إن شاء الله، يعني إذا الاحتلال كان طالع، ما كانش طالع من فلسطين، إن شاء الله بيطلع. يعني رايحة أصير محامية، عشان إذا اعتقلوا حدا من عيلتي أو استشهد حدا من عيلتي، يعني إن شاء الله ما بخسرش حدا من عيلتي، راح يعني عشان ندافع عنه. وإذا كان الاحتلال طالع من وطني، بحب أصير لاعب في كرة قدم. ويعني حلم الأول اللي تحقق حلم إن شاء الله تحرر فلسطين، وحلم الثاني إني أشوف اللاعب نمر جار.
يا زلمة كمان شهر في لعب.
The tour will reach Yale on February 1st. Back in October, I was part of a 10-day anti-racism road tour of the South called the Wheels of Justice. The weekend after it was over, it was a Wheels of Justice festival in Old Lyme, Connecticut. We'll show parts of it on the program today. First, the leader of the tour, Reverend Stephen Jungkeit. He gives an overview. We join him as he is remarking about a talk given in Atlanta's Emory University by Beth Corey about the long-time ties between Palestinians and U.S. black struggles.
Beth went on to note that connections between Palestine and the Black Freedom Movement aren't new at all. She noted that SNCC, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, had made that connection back in 1967 in one of their newsletters. She noted that while MLK openly endorsed Israel, identifying Zionists as the oppressed, Malcolm X drew connections between black life in America and Palestine, going so far as to visit Gaza at one point on the way back from his Hajj. She read us poems written by Black Americans and Palestinians in the 1980s and 1990s as those communities recognized their common struggles. And she noted the ways those commonalities became all too apparent in recent years. Now, no doubt there are powerful differences, and no doubt the struggle in Palestine is not identical to the struggles occurring throughout the United States right now, no doubt. But the similarities are too overwhelming to ignore. And so what are the ways these issues are connected? How do our own domestic practices mirror what we see going on in Palestine? We know well that the same process of land expropriation and ethnic cleansing used against Palestinians were used here in the United States against Native Americans. We know well that Palestinian protesters tweeted advice to protesters in Ferguson when tear gas was sprayed. We also know that a company in Pennsylvania manufactures that tear gas that's used in the West Bank and in places like Ferguson, both. We know that our police have been steadily militarized for the past 30 years so that it's easy to mistake images from Charlotte or Baton Rouge or Ferguson for images that come from the West Bank. We know that police all across our country routinely receive training in Israel on ways to pacify street protesters. And we also know that police brutality is as endemic here in the United States as it is in Israel and the West Bank. We also know that particular force is being reserved for children and for teenagers who are routinely incarcerated in both places and, yes, tortured. We know that mass incarceration has been a strategy employed in both countries to eliminate resistance. And we know that security companies like G4S have made enormous profits in Israel and the United States alike. In fact, G4S has been employed by allies of the Dakota Access Pipeline Project to intimidate the water protectors at Standing Rock, a scene that now also resembles the militarized zones of our urban centers and of the West Bank. Those dogs that were unleashed on protesters out at Standing Rock, those came from G4S. We also know that all of this thrives under a regime of structural racism, which legitimates and fuels the separations and tensions, the violence and divisions all the more. And so what is to be done? Where do we go from here? That is in part what we're gathered here to talk about. And it is in part what all of us who made the Wheels of Justice journey are hoping to do, to figure out where to go from here. Those are questions that were on our minds as we traveled, learning the legacy of the civil rights movement, while also learning about the profound work that's taking place throughout our country right now. There are reasons to be discouraged right now, but let me tell you, there are reasons to be profoundly hopeful, given all that is occurring out there. In Charleston, at Mother Emanuel Church, we were reminded of the power of hospitality and forgiveness after the massacre that took place in that space last year. In Beaufort, South Carolina, we were reminded of the power of sacred storytelling in order to keep the human spirit alive. In Koinonia, we were reminded of the power of community and of shared life, the shared purse, communism, if you will. And in Atlanta, we were given reminders of the need for research and for reading and for joining the connective threads across various struggles. We were reminded of the need to create an entirely new economic paradigm in Atlanta. In Montgomery, we were given lessons in the importance of memory and the importance of activism, of being in the streets. We were told by a man who spent 30 years in prison on a wrongful conviction that even though the authorities had taken his freedom, even after 30 years, they could never take away his joy. In Muscle Shoals, we learned about the marvelous power of song for uplifting the human spirit. Muscle Shoals, Stax Records, these produced the real theology of the 20th century, in my estimation. In Birmingham and Memphis, but really everywhere, we learned about the power of the written and spoken word, and we learned about the importance of feeding our bodies and souls with good food. We didn't do Cherokee the justice it deserved, and for that I have regrets, but everywhere we went, Travis Harden reminded us of the Standing Rock protests and the power of prayer when it comes to confronting past and present injustices. And in Selma, we heard from a minister named Leota Strong who confessed to his own despair at times, but who told us that he is still listening to all the voices that call to him every time he crosses the Edmund Pettus Bridge. All those courageous people that put themselves on the line to make a better world for themselves and for their children. He told us that it hasn't been easy in Selma, but that he remains committed to the work of caring for his people, committed to the work represented by that march in 1965, committed to preaching the good news in a city that, for all of its symbolic prestige, counts the local Walmart as the only viable gathering place for people in town. Leota Strong was but one voice. Even so, his was a reminder of the divine spirit that I believe shines in every single one of us. A divine spirit that shines in Old Lyme and in Selma and in Palestine and in places all over the country and all over the world. That divine light has not yet been overcome. Along the way, we read Martin Luther King's letter from a Birmingham jail out loud in each of our vehicles. And we saw the prison from which he wrote that letter in Birmingham. And one of the first points he makes in that letter is that we need to have what is now being called an intersectional understanding of injustice. Understanding the ways struggles in one part of the world are powerfully connected to struggles in other parts of the world. That's one of the criticisms he faced as he sat in the jail, as many of his well-meaning colleagues urged him to engage in local struggles back in Atlanta and not to cross lines. But he made a powerful case for the work of intersectionality, one that I believe all of us need right now. He made a powerful case for connecting things up. He made a powerful case for following individual threads that might seem to be isolated, might seem to be in different geographic parts of the world, but in reality form a connective web. That's the spirit in which we've launched our Wheels of Justice journey. It's the spirit we seek to display this afternoon at our Wheels Festival. It's a spirit in which we're trying to link up not only the injustices that occur all across the globe, but the ways in which hope and community and shared struggle and prayer and song and food and storytelling and all of these methods of resistance that we encountered along the way wind up joining us and connecting us in a deep connective thread. That's the spirit that we're after with the Wheels of Justice journey and with the Wheels of Justice Festival.
They're using, the illegal tactics and trying to build that pipeline underneath our Missouri River. And not only is it going to affect the Missouri River that goes to the Mississippi River, underneath it is a big, huge, giant lake called the Oglala Aquifer. And if you Google it, you will see how far it goes down south. It's the whole Midwest, and that's underneath that. If it ever breaks or leaks, and there's so many leaks now that it's not for sure that it's not going to break and contaminate our water. But so I'm ready to stay there for the winter, and I kind of feel guilty that I wasn't there to be standing in front of my son. But I just want to sing an honor song, for everybody here that helps and supports me and my family, and the pipeline, and the donations that were sent out. My tent's pretty good. I got it staked down for the winter, so but I'm working on getting a heating system, like a little wood stove. I reinforced a canopy by putting bars along with the other bars all the way around, and I got it like 6 tarps over it, 20 footers. I got it staked down with stakes, a foot long, with rocks tied into the canvas so it won't tear. And so, you know, it's there for the winter, but, you know, I don't know what's happening. Last night, they have people, and, you know, this is the G4S, you know, they're there. Last night, they started a fire, and it was like 300 feet from our main camp. So I was just worried about, you know, if it gets to my camp, you know. But anyway, you know, I'll be going back on Saturday, and, you know, I'm going to be glad to get back. And this drum, you know, ever since I got to the camp, I sang at all the camps in my area. I'm at a camp called Kui Chasha. It's a Lower Brule camp. There's all these camps all over, and they all kind of have their own kitchens. And to take the heat off the main camp, they give them food, and they drop food at all those camps. And that's the one and you always hear all these drum groups at night singing all over in all the directions. And so, but nobody sings in our camp, so I've been singing there, and that's why, you know, I could barely talk when I got here, or let alone sing. But you know, I've been teaching at the school every day, teaching them all the songs I've been teaching for over 35 years. My CD won a Native American Music Award, and they had them for sale here. And the cover of my CD is painted by Leonard Peltier, one of our political prisoners, because my uncle was Russell Means on my shirt. And, you know, so our family has been involved in human rights for Native Americans since I was, you know, 13 years old, when they took over Wounded Knee and held it for 71 days through the winter. But so, you know, I'm really proud to honor my relatives, my late Uncle Russell Means and Ted Means, and my mother and my father. And anyway, just want to sing a song an honor song for everybody that, you know, supports us, you know, here in Oldheim, and you know, also the people in Palestine. When I was there, we came back with, if you all remember, Tamer and Nadine and Albert. And me and Albert, we kind of roomed together, and we both teach children how to sing with the drum, you know. And so we kind of hit it off, and like I said, in our culture, I adopted Albert as a brother. As you remember, a lot of you were here. I took a Celtics star quilt that Corinne gave me, and I painted all the orange basketballs red so it matched the Palestine flag. And we had a ceremony here, and we hunkad, you know, Albert into our family. So I keep in touch with Albert, you know. So I sing for them too, you know. And I pray every day for them. And so anyway, I'm going to sing this song, honor song. Yeah, yeah, way high, yeah, 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 way high, yeah, way high, yeah, way high, yeah, way high, way high, yeah, way high, yo.
Realize that if you possess the desire to help a people, to help the victims of oppression, you better be ready to possess a desire to speak up for them all. And I realized that having Palestine be my thing is not what it's all about. And instead, it's about holding yourself responsible for, like I said, all of those who are being oppressed, if that makes any sense. So I went to this trip sort of with one angle, and I came out having been introduced to all of them. And I think what saddens me the most, having learned so much on this trip, was that I was born into a generation that was under the illusion that we were past racism and that we were past slavery, and that if you didn't consciously possess a bias towards people of color, if you didn't actively think horrible thoughts about them the way they did back in the 60s and the 50s and all the way back into when America was founded, well then you're not racist, or you're not part of this system. And being on this trip alerted me to the fact that unless you're actively doing something, against this machine, then you're not really doing anything. And thus, you're propagating the crisis. So I'm still trying to figure out what it is that I can do to actively give a voice to this crisis. And I haven't quite figured that out. And as I said earlier in the church service this morning, for now, until I figure out what else it is that I'll be doing, I have my music. So I wanted to share with you a piece that I composed for my grandmother who was dying when I wrote this piece for her 2 years ago. And the piece is a song of healing. The piece of music is like a song of healing, so I think it's appropriate for the atmosphere of today's gathering, if you'll indulge me.
That's our program for today. This has been Stanley Heller for The Struggle.